Truly one of the great mockumentaries ever. This is Spinal Tap. What's this movie about? Let me analyze it for you and help you understand why. Part of the reasons, like 1% of the reasons I think this movie is great. Coming up next. So This is Spinal Tap is the name of the movie, not just Spinal Tap. That's the band's name. Released in 1984. It's director Rob Reiner's first movie. He's in it as the fake fictional director Marty DeBurgi, who's interviewing the English band Spinal Tap, doing a tour of the United States. Ill-fated tour, terrible things gone wrong. Maybe they're washed up. They've been through a couple decades worth of vast changes in their band and their band's lineup. And now, well, it's time for things to go terribly wrong for them. When the movie came out, the three actors weren't known. Now I think they're very well known. They've gone on to do great work. Michael McKean is David St. Hubbins, the lead singer. Christopher Guest, lead guitarist, is Nigel Tufnell. Harry Shearer, who has all kinds of voices in The Simpsons, is Derek Smalls. And of course, this movie is done in the style of a documentary, even though it's fake, so thus we have this word mockumentary. There have been a few of these, several of these out at this time. You had Eric Idle's Ruddles band making fun of the Beatles and other sort of pop bands, in the late 1970s. Woody Allen had come out with Z-League, which was having fun with like PBS style documentaries at this time. But really, this movie has such power and effect that I think all mockumentaries after this, including those directed by Christopher Guest, of course the TV show The Office, really pay homage and owe a lot of debt to this particular movie. In fact, there have been so many jokes that have gone out of this movie and way beyond it. I still hear to this day in weird settings, turn it up to 11 as a way to say amp it up or make it as big and as great as it could possibly be.
What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. One louder.
Now, I'm not going to even review the plot, and then the band breaks up and gets back together, and in the meantime, that you have a lot of fun with the songs in this movie, which are able to playfully mock. I think the word is parody, which thus honors things that it's based on. Parody a number of pop music and rock and roll kinds of things, I not just music but iconography at this point in time. Rewatching it, what really struck me this past time was that this is 1983-84, and at this point in time the popular music scene had just evolved very quickly, and there had been so many styles at this point in time by the early 1980s and changes that the band Spinal Tap could be made as a parody of a number of rock acts who had gone through 3, 4, 5 different changes, surviving from maybe the 60s or early 70s to the early 1980s. Plus, at this point, it's the vast commercialization of pop and rock music with, of course, MTV in the last couple of years, and video, and of course, FM radio in the United States, and various forums that could spread music. And there's a lot of money to be made, of course, in music, and for these bands, real world bands, to follow the changes. I couldn't go through them all, possibly, but, there's a little Beatles-like pop rock or mid-60s pop/folk rock in Spinal Tap, but they change into various acts. They have some Black Sabbath heavy metal to them, then like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden thing going on. They had a prog rock phase. I don't think they had a post-punk and post-punk phase, but those are kind of in here, at least a tiny bit. And now they are trying to do their best with like an Americanized rock and roll style that would play well on the stage. Of course, in this movie, it doesn't. They're way over their heads.
And I have just one request. Would you play a couple of slow numbers so I can dance?
Working on a sex farm.
But I think this movie is not necessarily about a washed-up band. I think they're survivors. That's the way I actually look at this movie. They have survived the changes, and they're still trying to survive. They're struggling at this point in time in the early 1980s, but they have gone through many shifts and changes. They're still a working band. They're still making some money, and the end of the movie, which I won't spoil, it's delightful, actually affirms what I'm saying, that they are survivors, because they find new audiences all the time as they shift styles and shift roles in the way that they project themselves PR-wise out in public. To me, that corresponds with a lot of bands I actually like in real world things going on. There's a lot of very sophisticated or let's call it complex changes, from Herbie Hancock going from bebop to fusion, and now into this well, he will sort of commercialized hip-hop thing that he does about this time. Prog rock bands are famously changing into commercial bands like Genesis, for example. A number of bands are reorienting themselves from the audiophile sorts of ways to the video, of course. And I marvel at a number of bands, and particularly UK bands, that change so quickly it's unbelievable. For example, the band Japan, they're not too close to Spinal Tap, but you listen to their discography, the first 5 albums, and the glam rock to whatever the heck they're doing at the end of their run in like 1981 or 82. It's a wild shift in the way they sound. Talk will do that later. This happens throughout music history, or like the last 50, 60 years of music, but with so many different movements now at this point in time, and bands can pick and choose what styles of music they like. I think Spinal Tap comes along right about the perfect time to make fun of that. And of course, it's making fun of rock and roll history, which is now lauded at this point and has enough of a history to be familiar. I think the thing about dying drummers is a really dark joke on their part. Of course, Keith Moon from The Who, John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. I'm sure there's some others that died along the way. These wild and crazy drummers who have these crazy ends to their life, or terrible ends to their life, is part of the running joke, of course.
It's tragic, really. He exploded on stage.
Just like that. It just went up.
He just was like a flash of green light. And that was it.
But along with being survivors, this movie's about friendship. The Tufnell St. Hubbins relationship, as it goes back to their school days, being broken up by a woman who comes between them, sort of a Yoko Ono, not quite, but Yoko Ono figure, who sort of breaks them up, but nothing can break the bonds of the male friendship. That's affirmed wonderfully by the end of the movie too. And Guest and McKean have a great chemistry here, in my opinion.
If she's not on the 519, then I'm gonna know what sorrow means, and I'm gonna cry all the way home.
No, I have to tell you, there are 2 movies here, not just one, and the reason is because when DVDs came out, 3 guys got together and recorded an audio commentary as their characters. McKean, Guest, and Shearer, they did, St. Hubbins, Tufnell, and Smalls, watching DeBurgy's movie and then getting really ticked off at it because they think they've been railroaded, miscast. And then the audio commentary of these 3 characters on top of the movie is a movie unto itself. You have to, after you watch the original Spinal Tap movie, you have to rewatch this again, and it's almost equally as hilarious to me. It's a second movie because of the audio commentary that abides forever, and makes this a fascinating, this fictional document where these fictional characters have changed the way you can see the movie, thinking they've been railroaded by DeBurgy.
What did you do to finally unload that place, Nige?
Well, I had to. It was one of those, I think I sold it for about $10,000. The whole castle, yeah.
Now, of course, the band became a touring act and became part of, real-world tours, thanks to their music, which I don't have the ability to say whether the music is great, but it does sound a lot like what's on rock and roll radio, what had been on rock and roll radio at this point, and even through my youth and lifetime. FM radio is still playing classic rock music from the 1960s and 70s. My goodness, this stuff will never die. Still, there are acts like the Rolling Stones touring, Journey, Styx, whomever. They're still going. And so Spinal Tap hits on a phenomenon that actually didn't stop anywhere near 1984. It's still going in the 2020s. Anyway, of course, as you know, even though audiences love this, normal audiences, people like me, rock and roll musicians affirm that all of these things happen, from no one showing up to the autograph signing to the maybe shady or tricky relationship with the manager. The censorship at this time, of course, they want to be sexually alluring and suggestive, and yet they can't be with the cover to smell the glove. What's fascinating to me is that a number of acts kind of actually looked at Spinal Tap and kind of repeated what they did. I don't know enough about the history. I'm just saying Metallica did release a Black album about 7 years later, which is bizarre to me. And there were a number of sort of gag acts, Weird Al Yankovic being one of those. They Might Be Giants having these ridiculously goofy lyrics. So I don't know how much of that is like from this movie, but like this movie is as much a part of as it is a part and making fun of rock and roll culture at the time and then the history that develops afterward. It is amazing how that has actually happened. Now, I'm recording this video in July of 2025, and there's going to be a remake, second Spinal Tap, released later this year. You might be seeing this video after it's released. This is one of the very rare retro 1980s things, rehashing the 1980s. I'm a little bit in favor of. I want to see what these guys are up to. They're probably 70, 75 years old at this point, but there's been this 40-year history, and because of that DVD commentary in the 90s, these guys might still have a lot to say about this band and what happened to them, showing how they've developed. I'd love to see what they have to say about AI, if they have anything to do with AI music in this sequel. But this band, I'm sure like in 100 years, 50, 100 years, people start listening to this music. People might be fooled into thinking this was a real band because it's so spot on in every single aspect of depicting what could go wrong for a rock and roll band, or what rock and roll bands filming of rock and roll bands was like at this time. And this movie has the magic of cinema. It's the perfect casting, it's the perfect sequence, it's the perfect series of incidents and jokes that are all memorable, that nothing has ever been made quite like this. Christopher Guest made several great mockumentaries. I mentioned The Office, but no one can quite get to what this is doing. And I think it's just perfect place, perfect time, and perfect casting, etc. So there's no other movie that's quite of this quality. I think because it has what Werner Herzog calls the inexplicable magic of cinema. Now, what do you think of this as Spinal Tap? Let us know in the comments, and please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Thank you, and have a great day.